Somebody coming in? All right. Welcome everybody to this class. Everything that I'm talking about today is going to be with involving unity and understanding and what it takes to get to that understanding. And even before that, my name is Darryl Wingfield, for those that don't know me. And everything I'm doing is for Purpose Serve, which is this logo right here. And Purpose Serve is pretty much an initiative, a business that promotes general health and well-being. And ultimately speaking, my goal is very, very, very simple. And that is to do whatever I can to help any and everybody serve their purpose the best way that they can. And today, we're going to be talking about, like I said, what it takes for that understanding. And we're going to be talking about shapes. We're going to be talking about symbolism. And we're going to be talking about nature and our relationship as the creation with the Creator. And the very first thing that I want to start off with is the definition of unity, which I'm going to be putting right here. So, this is the state of being united or joined as a whole. So when you hear that definition, what do you guys think of? And as far as shape?
A circle.
There you go. So we're going to put a circle right there. So in order for unity to happen in reality, we first must have that unity happen within ourselves first and foremost. And within these last couple of weeks, we've been going down a pretty deep journey of who are you? Who am I? And when you first ask that question, what does it lead you to? And we established that when you ask that question, the example that I give is not going to send you across the street. It's not going to send you to a different state. It's always going to come back to yourself. And this is where this unity always will start. It ain't going to start anywhere else. Anywhere else. And if you guys look in the world right now, it's not a whole lot of unity. Everything is broken up into fragments. There's distractions everywhere, and that brings us away from the unity in ourselves. And we manifest that in the real world. And one example that I want to bring up with this is the Trojan horse. So the Trojan horse was pretty much a tactic that the Greeks used against the city of Troy during the Trojan War. And they made a big wooden horse, right? And they left it in the front of Troy gates. And the story with Troy, their gates and their perimeters you couldn't penetrate it. That was their stronghold. So that's what had them last so long in the war that they was fighting against the Greeks. So what the Greeks did was they decided to leave this horse outside their gates, and then after that they pretended like they was leaving. And then after that the Trojans took that horse into the city as a trophy for their victory. And then everybody went to sleep, and then after that the Greeks was in this Trojan horse. And they went out and they opened the gates for those people to come back, the soldiers to come back that thought they left. And then after that, that ended the whole entire Trojan War. And the point of me bringing this Trojan horse up is just that they got infiltrated from the inside out first. And that ended everything. Everything. So their source of unity, their source of power, all came from within. And all it took was a deception, manipulation, control for that unity to get broken up. And like I said, this stuff happens all the time in our everyday life. This is on a major, major, major scale. But at the end of the day, unity leads to wholeness. That's what we all looking for at the end of the day. And through this, I associate this circle, unity, which I'm gonna put right here, with purpose. And I talk about the definition of purpose all the time because I'm really, really big on making things on its most fundamental level to have it really, really simple to understand, because we overcomplicate every single thing. And purpose is the reason why something is created, the reason why something is done, the reason why something exists. So that means that if anything exists, it has purpose, no matter what it is. But I talk about all the time as well that due to the fact that we don't understand a lot of things, we deem it meaningless. We think that it's chaotic. It's no reason for this thing. But we have to raise our understanding up. Because by doing that, it automatically leads to purpose. It automatically leads to unity. It automatically leads to wholeness. And like I said, it first starts within us first. So it's something that we constantly have to be acting on. And from here, we're going to be breaking down what that takes as a collective. Another thing that I always talk about as well is the concept of a hologram. And if you break a hologram up, all that information for the whole entire hologram is in that single piece. And essentially that's what we are. We're literally a reflection of the universe. But that means that there's a relationship between the creator and the creation. But our problem is that we think that we're the creator making creation. You get what I'm saying? So now we're going to be talking about Trinity. We talked about unity. Now we're going to be talking about Trinity. So most people automatically, they think the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But all in all, on its most basic fundamental level, this is the state of being three. When you think about that, what shape comes to your head? There we go. Now, this triangle, and for a symbolism of representation, it could mean so much. And for the most part, it's a representation of an ideal. And a lot of these things that we can see them in our life, in nature, and colors, so many things. And I'm going to be listing a couple examples right now on a smaller board. Because ultimately speaking, when you have the state and the being of three, that creates possibilities for a combination of so many different things. And when it's not controlled, it can lead to destruction. But when it's controlled, it can lead to construction. And this is what I mean by that, right? So the first one that I'm going to be using as an example of this is fire. So fire needs three things. It needs oxygen, it needs heat, and it needs fuel. This is a trinity. This is a state of being three, right? So fire, as you can see, when it gets uncontrolled, it can be very, very destructive. But at the same time, if you guys look real closely, our body operates the same exact way. We need the same thing fire needs. We need oxygen, we need fuel, and we need heat in order to survive. And that's a constructive thing. But like I said, that's in the point where it's controlled and not out of control. So in the sense of what I just said, when the fire is uncontrolled, that's almost as if the triangle is upside down. That's where the aim is at, towards the destruction. But when the fire is controlled, fireplace, you know what I'm saying? That's one simple example of this state of being three being controlled. Another state of being three primary colors. Can y'all name the primary colors?
Red, blue, and green.
All right. So we got red. The green was wrong.
Yellow.
Here we go. So these are the primary colors. And y'all know with the combination of these primary colors, you get the secondary colors. And then with a combination of that, you get even more colors, and it goes on and 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 on, right? We also got another very, very, very basic one too, in the matter of a trinity. States of matter. Can y'all give me one?
Matter.
Solid. There we go.
Yeah.
That's two. We got solid and we got gas.
Liquid.
Nice. That's the third one.
It's a competition.
And then after that, the last one that I'm going to be talking about, which is very, very essential to all of us in this room, is oxygen. That's also a trinity. Air we breathe. Well, water, not oxygen. Forgive me.
I was like, wait. Okay.
Because water takes 2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen molecule. And our bodies is what? 70% water? So that's also essential to us as well. But like I said, this state of 3 is very, 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 very important. And it can serve as an ascension process going up or a descension process going down, depending on where your aim is at. So ultimately, a trinity represents where your aim is at. And for the most part, our natural aim is towards the highest version of ourselves that we can be naturally. But due to outside things, it convinces us otherwise. It convinces us that we are not meant to be or do whatever it is that we were meant and set out to do. And like I said, going back to the beginning of what I said, it's a question of who are you? Not what you do, but who are you? And asking that question of who are you is going to lead to what you need to be doing at the end of the day. So now we're going to backtrack a little bit, right? So we just talked about Trinity. And we talked about a circle. So we're going to go back to this right here, to the Trojan horse. And I wanted to talk about ultimately duality. Opposites. So we're about to play a little game of this or that. Right? So this is gonna be the first one. We got day.
Night.
There we go. That's the first example of duality. So the second one, right? Right?
Left.
Ah, you got it right. There we go.
I guess
That was a little tricky one.
That was us.
Wrong. The next one, right? We got evil.
Good.
Oh, okay. Everybody on point right now. Right, and I'm gonna do one more, right? If we got subject,
We got object.
there we go. This is the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
This is the illusion of separation. And we talked about that about, I want to say 2 weeks ago, right? Duality. This is the day, this is how we think, this is how we live, this is how we feel. We walk around and we think this or that. It's either this, it's either that. That person is either right or they're wrong. And about 2 weeks ago, I remember specifically we was talking about syzygies, and syzygies is what connects opposites, essentially speaking. And that's the force that's always pushing us. And also, I talk about Carl Jung, a psychiatrist who pretty much spent his whole entire life analyzing crazy people and analyzing dreams and analyzing phenomena. And ultimately speaking, he coined the term syzygy. And he's seen that within this, that God operates in pretty much anything and everything if you look closely enough. And this is one of those things where we don't look closely enough and we don't take the things that operates on us on the inside and apply it to the things on the outside, because day ain't day without night. On ain't on without off. You know, it's not two separate things. In fact, those things are one and the same. And the one thing that I always bring up for an example of this is a quarter, right? You got heads and tails, but how much is a quarter worth?
25 cents.
Everybody knows that. But people look at life as heads and tails instead of looking at the thing for
What it's worth.
what it objectively is. It's always subject, what they think it is, instead of what it actually is. And we're going to be now going into the reality of what things actually are. And understanding that every single thing has a proper place in order. And when we're out of line to that, that is the breeding grounds for chaos. And that's what's going on right now. So another thing that I talk about on here is a quaternity. At this point, I'm pretty sure y'all can guess what it is. It's a state of being formed.
I wouldn't have said that. I was thinking paternity and maternity, but okay, go ahead.
No.
I should have. I knew that part. It's the paternity part. That's thinking parents.
Oh, Jesus. So, with this, what do you guys think of when, what shape?
Square.
There we go. So now, I'm going to be pointing out examples of this fraternity in our everyday life. And at this point, a decent amount of y'all already know, you know what I mean? But for those of y'all that don't know, right? I'm going to just draw this circle here. So we all know where we started from. We started from a place of unity, right? And then within that, we said we had the aim. But then now, we're going to be breaking down the structure. And how this structure is within everything. If you look, like I said, closely enough. And all of these things, it's within us as well. And the first example, which is going to be, all of them going to be pretty like simple, but all in all, the most simple things is always the things that's overlooked. And the first one I'm going to be pointing out is the seasons. Let's go.
Fall, summer, winter, spring.
All right. Oh my God. Is this backwards or?
You're fine. Impressive.
And we got summer. That's the four. This is a quaternity for the seasons. Right? So another quaternity that we're going to be talking about as an example. I'm going to turn this board around.
Okay.
Direction. If we think about a compass, right? Let's start.
North, south.
Ho, everybody chill. All right, got north,
South.
East.
West.
So with that being said, this gives us a sense of where we're going. And this is why direction is important. All of these need each other. All of these has a certain order to them, you know? It's not just doing anything, you know? So even with this, every single thing that I'm writing down, as y'all can see, it has a purpose. And not only that, the purpose is essential, you know? And it guides us, like I said, every single day, you know? We're gonna use 130 as an example. You got 130 south, you got 130 north. You know, we got, 38 east and west? So these simple things that we use to guide us to get where we gotta go, but we take advantage of it. We don't really sit there and think about the higher order of this thing and how it governs our life. And another example of this fraternity, right? Let's start.
Solid.
Oh, we did States of Matter. That was 3.
Fire.
Fire.
All right, there we go. We got 1.
Fire, water.
Water.
Nice. That's 2. We got 2 more. All right. Oh, she on the roll. She on the
Is it
roll.
gas or no? Or it's gas and fire?
There you go, Molly. Great answer.
Earth? That popped in my head. I was
I'm thinking
thinking.
dirt.
Dirt. Yeah.
Same
I was
thing.
thinking earth, but yeah. I thought it the first.
But this is another quaternity. This is another quaternity, right? And the combination of these things causes so much in our world, right? With this, when it's in a very chaotic state, we gotta think earthquakes, we gotta think tornadoes, we gotta think wildfires, hurricanes. But when it's controlled and stable, it's a means for our survival. And think about crops, think about plants, think about animals that survive off those plants and crops, and think about the animals that we use to survive. So a lot of these things, if you go all the way back when, these are the things what ancient people used to survive because they didn't have anything else. The only thing they had was observation. But us is different. With science and technology, with a press of a button, we just know where to go. With them, they had to really pay attention step by step, or it can cost them everything, their life, their tribe. And generation after generation, we get removed from this. And things get broken apart. And now that we're talking about, we went from unity to fraternity. But even with that, all of these things know its parts to collectively lead to the state of being united and joined as a whole. So with all of these different pieces, it's moving as if it's one. Because everybody know their part. And another thing that you can naturally see, something as simple as watching bees in a beehive, everybody collectively is doing their part to take care of the little baby bees, doing whatever they can for the queen bee. That's essential to their whole entire colony to keep providing life. We move like that too. But we all collectively at this point are so removed from ourselves that it's going to take a really long time for us to get to that point of unity because we lack understanding. And the lack of, going back to what I was saying with the illusion of separation, it's not real. This is real. But nowadays people convince you that this ain't real. Don't pay attention to that. That's not important. Pay attention to your job. Pay attention to whatever. All of these things, like I said, from going back in the beginning, it pulls you away from yourself. And essentially every single thing that I'm talking about on a very, very deep level, this is soul work. Because when you ask that question of who am I, your soul going to awaken. But the chatter that we hear from around us, we can't speak the language of ourselves. And that's another thing that I talk about in this class, that all of us got unique languages that we need to learn. Because at the end of the day, that unique language speaks. That's war, deception, control, manipulation, things being fragmented. And there was something that Johnny wrote yesterday, which I was reading through his notes. And it was in a matter of the kingdom of heaven is within you. And not only that, everything is divide and conquer. And we know where the nature of that comes from. So we have a really, really rocky uphill battle that we got to go on. But at the same time, like I said, we got to walk that walk. And a lot of us is missing that practice of doing what we have to do. We rely on help from outside things, books, people, instead of realizing that every single thing that we need and what we're capable of is already within us. So all of that future stuff that we want to do, we got to bring it into today. We can't wait until tomorrow. We can't wait until next week. We can't wait next month. We can't wait next year. We might not get that time. We might not. So we have to do our due diligence every single day. Every single day. And that's the only way that we're going to get to that understanding. And that understanding is going to lead to that unity. But it has to start with a structure, and that structure has to be rooted and strong in its foundation. And that's why I talked about a quaternity. And just to even think about this, example that I use for this is the pyramid. And the bottom of that structure at the bottom is a quaternity. But it's a pyramid. It also represents a higher aim, the state of being 3, if you look at it from a certain side. And ultimately, it also represents unity because where it's pointing at, it's pointing towards the sky. And embodies everything, encapsulates every single thing. And like I said, these are the things that we have to really, really pay attention to and not overlook. It's essential. It's essential to our survival. And the only reason why we made it this far, even though the people back then in ancient times were super brutal, we needed them to be brutal so we could have, you know, somewhat of a chill life right now. You know, but I don't know, people still brutal out here. But that comes from, like I said, that lack of understanding where somebody feels as though I don't have that, so I need to take from you. Those are the human forces compared to those natural forces, right? And in order for us to build that strong foundation, what can we do? Simply serve our purpose, right? And I always talk about this term, serve your purpose, right? And you got to treat the purpose as if it's the goal and take action towards it, which is the service. And just to break this down, to make it make a little bit more sense, right? We got purpose, we got service, and we got goals, right? So the service is doing something for others, and it always comes through yourself. And purpose is the reason for why something exists, why something is done, or why it exists. And goals is a means to an end, a definite aim. So all in all, we just ran through shapes galore and countless examples of shapes, and this is what it looks like. This is the aim. Your service has to be grounded in a structure. And you need to know the why, for why you're doing that thing instead of just doing that thing. And when you ask that question of why, it's going to give you purpose automatically. You're going to automatically think of a reason. You're going to come up with a reason. And it's best that that reason come from the heart. And with that, you need to develop the discernment to understand what your heart really, really wants. Because a lot of us, our hearts are troubled and ain't whole. So it has to be a purification process in order for it to get to that point. And last week I talked about disillusionment. And disillusionment meaning that to come across something that you believe that you wanted and you get it, and ultimately you're disappointed with that thing. And how that is the real reality check of what's going on. And that's the direction that you should be going in, because it's going to lead to that purpose. And also I talked about the difference between believing and knowing. And believing is typically coming from an outside source, and knowing typically comes from experience that tells you what it is. So, do y'all know y'all breathing air?
Yes.
Y'all don't believe?
I believe.
You said you believe?
I know.
Or you know?
Yeah.
You know? So, the knowing comes from direct experience. Let me turn around and write this. I can't do this.
I have a question.
What's up?
Does fish know they breathing oxygen? Or do you think they're breathing water?
Oh, that's a great question. If I was a fish, I swear to God I could give you the answer for that. But I'm sorry, I can't. I ain't a fish. But that's a great question, man.
It's like we don't know if we're really breathing.
That's a great question. But ultimately speaking, Because now to think about it, that could be a belief.
Yeah, it could be.
Nice, Ernie. So, outside source. So this is why high key experience is the best teacher. If you want to learn how to play football, you shouldn't pick up a book with the football handbook with the rules. You might as well get a helmet and get some shoulder pads and go out there. That's the best way to learn. Instead of trying to learn the indirect way. And a lot of us go through life learning in an indirect way instead of getting that direct experience. Because if you learn in an indirect way, it's only going to turn into a belief. It's not grounded in a knowing. So that means that once that belief gets challenged, and some part of it you see that it's not true and ain't gonna hold up, a lot of people stick with the belief. They stick with being ignorant, which causes things like the Trojan horse incident. When they think and know what's up, but don't know what really is up. And that ultimately leads to our demise almost every single time. The state of believing. Because beliefs change all the time. All the time. That's similar to change, which I say is like the only constant. Constant don't really exist. Going back to quaternities, going back to the seasons, everything's forever changing. So that means that we gotta forever be changing too. We're a reflection of what we see. That's the same thing that's going on inside of us. And ultimately speaking, we have to align with that. Like I said, that's very, very important. And it's very simple at the same time. But you have to ground it in a sort of knowing. And you get that knowing through direct experience. And for me, playing basketball, that's exactly my journey. Playing basketball gave me that knowing. Where I had a belief, but over time, I had to keep putting this belief to the test. I couldn't just keep thinking that by sitting around playing basketball around the corner locally that I had this knowing of this dream and vision to play basketball on a really high level. I had to go put myself out there to the test any which way, any way that I could. But through that knowing came. But through that knowing led to me starting Purpose Served. That's why all of this stuff is important, because I realized that the world was bigger than basketball, and that those same qualities that I learned from basketball can be applied any and everywhere. So it's very, very, very important that you find that purpose, which you don't have to look for. Like I said, it ain't across the street. When you ask that question of who am I, it's going to lead back to self. And not self as in myself, but self as in I, capital I. And that's going to connect you with that direct source, that plugged in everything. So ultimately speaking, when you think about the relationship with the Creator and creation, you have to understand that a lot of these things didn't start with us. A lot of these things that we're experiencing, it's not coming from us. It's coming from a bigger and higher place. And that's where we got to associate our purpose with. That's the reservoir power of what we do. And that's ultimately what helped me out to make it this far and keep going. Because this stuff isn't easy. I'm not going to act like it ain't. This is the most difficult thing that you could ever partake in. I'm 110% trying to get to know yourself, trying to get wholeness within yourself. And not only that, trying to bring that out into the world through your actions and deeds. You hear about people talking about changing your mindset, law of attraction, affirmations, all these different type of things, but it's not grounded in any sort of action. You have to do. That's what it truly means to serve your purpose. And that's the end of the class. Any questions? Anybody?
To answer your question, fish, they can't survive off of oxygen. The moment they come out, they die, right? So they have to be in water all the time. That makes sense, right?
That do make sense. I mean, if you leave them out of water, it's over.
Huh?
The gills, they have gills.
If you look at it, you take a fish out of water, it's just like us going into the water. You know, the opposite, you know. They have gills, yeah, but they're gonna die. As soon as oxygen hit. Yeah, hit the gills, yeah, they dry up and all that.
So, if you guys want to know more about Purpose Served, you can follow Purpose Served on Instagram, Twitter.
You said belief, right?
Yeah,
So in a way, belief is another word for faith,
it is.
right? So You said you need your faith grounded in something firm, right? And for you to start building up from there, right? So how do you know what you believe in, what your faith is the right faith?
Wow.
It's one of those things where you won't have to really question it. Like I said, it's like a knowing. It's a knowing. Oftentimes when we get to those points where we're questioning every single thing that we're doing, it's grounded in uncertainty, and that's why I brought up disillusionment. And when we get met with that reality check of this isn't it, a lot of us keep pushing. And even on the previous podcast where I talked about that, the two things what people do when they get met with this sort of resistance, they either run away or they shut down. And when you find that knowing, when you find that faith, is that belief automatically turns into knowing, bro.
Faith in what exactly? Your purpose or the higher power?
The higher power. And last week we talked about the way, right? And ultimately, in order to find the way, you have to find your way. Because going back to this, the state of being unified and joined as a whole, that means that one piece is moving like the whole entire thing. So going back to basketball, right? You got 5 positions. You got a point guard. You got a shooting guard, a small forward, a power forward, and a center. They all don't do the same thing. They all know what each role is. And if you go out there and execute and you keep executing the right way, it turns into a knowing rather than I believe I'm supposed to be doing this. Because that belief leads to almost in a way like doubt, to be quite honest. But if you have faith, that's like different from belief to me personally speaking. Because faith is like that unwavering courage and something that you can't see or feel. Just like, for example, we feel wind, but we don't necessarily feel air, essentially speaking. So a lot of things that we can't, feel with our 5 senses, it's hard for us to treat that as a knowing. We automatically sometimes treat it like as if it's like a belief, based off of like science and all different types of stuff where it has to be measured or labeled. But if it's beyond that, a lot of us have a hard time knowing that thing is actually real. We try to believe. But the whole point with this and serving your purpose, if you know that you're in that right thing, then you don't have to really question it, to be quite honest. It's going to be challenged. I'm not going to say like, you got everything figured out, but that knowing is there. It's almost as if like you're doing the right thing at the right time all the time, if that makes sense.
I was thinking about the scripture, faith is the evidence of things faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
So going back to what I said about like 20 minutes ago, because that's a really, really good verse that you just brought up. And when I was saying that all of those future things that we want to do, we got to pull it into now. That's also a part of that knowing, getting grounded in actions and deeds. Because a lot of us believe that we are supposed to be doing certain things, but we don't do those certain things.
So that it's in a way with the other Bible verse that faith without action means nothing. Right? I don't know if that's a specific thing, but just like paraphrasing everything, right? Faith with no action is.
But that's
faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
But you see, it needs to be acted out. If not, it is dead.
And what I think about is you were communicating. If no matter what higher power you believe in, you really do believe that something came from nothing. Everything started with a knowing more than a belief. Because it couldn't be without you knowing that it could be. So everything started with a knowing. Everything came into being because of a knowing, not from a belief.
That's perfectly put. So there's a word that I constantly use is emanation. And emanation is coming out of source. And what does this look like, right? This is we're gonna start with this point. But from this point, comes that. And the point can be referenced to any part of the circle. and encapsulate the whole entire circle at the same time, at the same time. So essentially, like, even though, like I said, we're all different, we all come from that source, and we deem it nothing, but that's everything at the same time. It contains everything. Fullness had to come before everything in order for all of this to be about, this happening. It's not by chance, this is not by accident, this isn't random. This has an order to it. And like I said, when we don't know that order, we deem it meaningless because we don't know. We don't know.
The one thing that I was thinking about, and I'm not making it a Bible class, but it in the Bible it talks about wisdom, knowing, and understanding. But it says, in all thy getting, get understanding. Because you can have wisdom and you can have knowledge, but if you don't understand the proper application of it, then it can't do what it set out to do. So for us, we're wise in our own ways, and we have knowledge, but we don't understand it. So because we don't understand it, we're continuously off course.
So I have something which I have in the ideas, the results handbook, where's the purpose requirements, which is like, it's cool that you just said that. And purpose requires, I boil it down to 3 things. Of course, understanding, mindfulness, and awareness. And this would give you that knowing instead of that belief. And mindfulness is the quality of your awareness. And awareness is, I'm over here blacking out. I don't really, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, this represents a state of mind, most importantly, in a state of being. A state of mind and a state of being. And the state of being is acting. A state of mind is all here, and we act on our thoughts. But if our thoughts is not in the right place and it's not aligned in the right order, then there's going to be chaos that's going to be brewing somewhere down the line. It's inevitable.
Can I give you an example?
Give me an example.
Remember I told you the story, I met the homeless guy at the Popeyes, and he told me about money, and he was saying that without money there's no what was this?
My book bag and my blue notebook.
Hey, I forgot it. But it was like, without rule it'd be without money it'd be chaos. Because people, they'll be only doing things for their own selfish reasons and stuff like that. People wouldn't do anything to help anyone. They wouldn't do anything. It has to, without money, people would just do whatever they felt like. It wasn't like it needed like, it didn't give anyone like a reason to do something in a way. And people don't have no order. That's the thing. People won't have order about money. That's the thing you were saying.
I agree with that.
Because money holds purpose, it holds value, it holds meaningfulness, awareness.
It controls.
Yeah, it controls everything.
But this goes back to how the example that I use of like us not understanding how things work. And what you just said was like, that's ideally how money should be used.
Should be.
But we don't use it like that.
Should. There you go. Should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Money ain't a problem until you put it in the wrong hands.
There you go.
In the wrong mind.
It goes back to the subject.
I say it goes back to the wrong mind.
You're absolutely right. But like if you don't have these things on one accord, like I said, a lot of our problems is due to the fact that we have troubled hearts, troubled desires. And if we don't clean that up, all of that stuff that I just talked about, that even with the money, everything, the misuse of it, everything, our own bodies, it automatically leads to destruction. Automatically. So, for example, going back to that Trojan horse with the deception, that one, they used that thinking that they was going to get a gift, but it's soldiers inside of there, and they let it on the inside, end up bringing the whole city down, and end up losing a whole entire war for something so simple.
There was good and evil in that horse and outside that horse. Exactly, but you have to have the right discernment and understanding to know what's what. And that's going to let you know who you are, and that's going to further lead to what you need to do. So that's why I talk about that difference between that belief and that knowing. It's 2 different things. And if you know who you are, you're going to know what to do. But if you believe you think you know who you are, you're going to think and believe what you think you need to do.
which is going to lead to disillusionment, which is going to lead to that disappointment. Sooner or later. Sooner or later.
Well, Daryl, one thing I wanted to talk about is you started with this and that. So in life, we need a this and that. We need life and death. We need good and bad. That's just the circle of life. That's how the ecosystem works. So some people, when you talk about purpose, were born for evil, and some people were born for good. That's just their purpose. You know what I mean? That's just their purpose. That's just the balance of life. That's just the forces. So that's just their purpose.
So Johnny just gave me chapter 1 of Genesis, and this is something that I always go back to, and I can't see that far. I ain't even gonna lie. But in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was empty and formless and cloaked in darkness. And going forward, I did a whole breakdown of this whole entire thing and what it looked like, and going back to that Trinity and quaternity and duality and all of that, it all comes together for one thing, right? So this is what this looked like from what I got down, right? This is the ultimate unity. This is where we all emanate from. But through this, the very first thing God created now, this doesn't mean, right, even though they're separate from each other, they still need each other. God is not going to create anything without meaning, without a purpose for it, right? And then after that, this same sort of process keeps happening over and over and over again, where you got the play of opposites within it, but...
No, you can keep talking. I was going to say something afterwards. I want you to finish your thought.
Yeah, but what you going to say?
Now, what I was literally going to say is because a couple days ago, I've been studying the book of Joseph, like heavily, like OD. And one thing that I remember vividly from the book of Joseph, literally our last podcast was God Why. That was the title of it. And a lot of people don't understand like why God does certain things. But then the Holy Spirit had came to me and like had me